Hello, in this video, we will introduce binary I/O. Now, we already mentioned that the difference between text I/O and binary I/O. All we have done so far is for text I/O. Text I/O, you write data to the file, you can see the file using a text editor. For the binary I/O, it is direct dump. Whatever you have the memory, like you have an int 4 bytes in the memory, you can directly copy it to the disk. When you read from the disk, likewise, you do the same thing. From the disk, you have 4 bytes, you can copy it back to the memory. So this is called binary I/O. It does not involve any encoding and decoding. So let's look at how C++ writes data using binary I/O. It uses this write function. When you open the file, you have to use the mode is the binary mode. You open this file stream, then invoke its write function. You write the bytes. So this is what happens when you write it. You write the bytes in the memory on the disk. You specify how many bytes you're going to write. So this is the diagram here in the memory. So this is 4 bytes. You can write it to the disk. Let's look at the first simple test program. We create file stream. This is binary I/O for the file cd.data. We're going to write it to this. So this is the out. And also you have to use ios : binary. Now we're going to write the string Atlanta. Now this string is relatively easy because what you have is all these characters in the string. So every character is 1 byte. So what you do is to write it and each bytes. So we have now array of bytes, but there's no data type called byte in C++. So what we do is to use array of characters. Each character is a byte. So when you write it, you can write it using this is string is object. You get the C string is array of characters, and then you write it to the file. What about the non-strings? So if you have an int, it's 4 bytes, how do you write it? So what we can do now, let's look at this int. It's 199. I'm going to write it to the file. So you have to get 4 bytes. So we are going to use this in reinterpretcast. So this is it is to cast whatever the value you have. So this is the value is right here. So this is the variable. You get the address here. So now you do a cast. It's called reinterpretcast, to cast into 4 characters. It's just 4 bytes. It's just 4 bytes. That's what it does. It's 4 bytes for the int. That 4 bytes now is considered as this character. You now write it to the file binary IO.write. So this is reinterpretcast, cast it into this character. So let's look at the reinterpret. This is a very powerful notion for casting. In C++, we have the static cast. We already used the static cast. Now it's reinterpret cast. In the future, we have another cast called a dynamic cast. So this reinterpret cast is always going to be successful. So you have memory for storing int, you reinterpret what is content here to any type. So let's see, I'm going to have this a float here. This is the float. So it's stored on computer now. So I'm going to do this reinterpret. So this is reinterpretcast. So this is reinterpretcast. You're going to reinterpret this into int. So that's how you can write it. Reinterpret int. Reinterpret it. So let's see what is the int value here represented in this 4 bytes, and what is the float value represented in this 4 bytes. So now let's format it using the IO manip, and let's get it in hex. So this hex value, it's the same is for the float value and for the int value. You just reinterpret it. So this is the hex value here. Reinterpret it as float, that's this, as int, that is this. So now let's see how we can read data. Let's look at the city.data. We put Atlanta into the file. So now we're going to read it back. So how I'm going to read it back? So this is, you're going to read it back is to use this is S. So here, the maximum is 10 characters. So read it back. So number of characters read. So how do you know it? Right after this object, after you invoke it, you can invoke a G count. That is to count how many characters you actually read. So now you can put the last one here. After the last one, you put this no pointer, so for C string. So now you can display this S and close it. So what about the integer? This is the temp.data we used to put one integer there. So let's read the integer back. So what you do is you can read back to the value. So this is to use reinterpret cast. You're going to cast this into int for this value. So don't forget, you need to close it. So how do you invoke close it is binaryio dot close. So one thing here, when you do this reinterpret cast, this is the bytes. You have to put a bytes here. So this is the int is already here. This is the int here. This is the bytes. This is the bytes. This is the, but there's no byte character type in C++, so we use this character. Now let's look at the example for the binary IO of array. So let's write the entire array using binary IO. So this is my array. So how are you gonna write it? So this is reinterpret cast. So you're gonna cast this into this is into character for this array. So please remember the address of the array. So the first is the address. So you don't have to put the address off. It's because the array name is already the pointer to the array. So this is write it. So after this, we close it. So what's the size of array? So this is all the elements, and each element of the number of bytes, so that's the size of. Now, after you close it, you reopen it for binary input. So this is reinterpret, and the result here, this is the array now. So we're going to get this is size of the result. It's the same as the array, so the size here, this is the same, we're using the same size here. And you're going to see the result is you have this all coming back. The same result. So you write it this and you read back, it's the same. You can write very powerfully, write the entire object to the file. So let's look at this object here, is student here. This is the class. Define the objects for student. Student has first name, middle name, initial, last name, score, and the constructors here. So we have this get and set functions for the students. So it's provided, but not listed. So let's look at all this. Header file. So this is student underscore h. So header file here is this is now we are going to have this is get is const. So the constructors and get function and set function, and this is all, and this the private data fields. Now the implementation of the student.cpp, so we're going to implement it. So this is a set score. So this is this score is now assigned with the parameter score. Now we're going to write a test program to create objects students. So there's student 1, student 2, student 3. And we're going to write this into the binary file. It is reinterpretcast. We're going to cast this into this characters, and that is here, the student 1, and this is the size of a student. So this is the class here, student. So that's the size. One thing you need to know that what we have here is the data fields here, they are fixed size. So this is the size for int is fixed to 4 bytes, and this is 25 bytes, 1 byte. This is 25 bytes. This is all fixed. So that's when you write every object, they have fixed size. So that is for write, and then you close it and read the data back. So this is the, you are going to, this is the student U. So now you read 1 into student U, display students, student U, and read another into student U and display it again. So this is the output. That is all for binary IO in C++. See you on the next video.